Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Table Podcast, Season 11, Episode 4. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being here, Steelers Nation, for this Friday. Dave, how you doing?
I'm trying to tighten up my spiral.
Aren't we all?
But yeah, happy Friday to everybody.
Hoping the Pens tighten up their spiral.
Oh, no doubt. Boy, they
you think
really
they do it?
I don't. Yeah, I think they win tonight. Now, whether or not they win the series or not, I don't know. You know, I tell you that Carey Price is something. He's really playing well in net for Montreal and all. So I guess the upside to this is they would be in the runnings for the first overall pick, if they lose this series, I guess. So if there is a bright spot, I guess it would be that. But definitely. Oh, before we get started here, we're going to have Dr. Mel on, not today, but Tuesday, on the Tuesday show. We're going to go over several things that we're about to cover in this show related to Ben and some of the things he told the media from an operational standpoint and what all he had done during the offseason there. And on top of that, we want to try to get as many questions, kind of medical related questions if we can, for Dr. Mel to help fill up kind of the segment there, because I'm sure we won't be able to fill a whole segment just talking about Ben there. I don't know, maybe we will. But if you have a specific kind of question, for Dr. Mel related to Steelers and maybe medical issues, fire it over before Tuesday, if you will, to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. And I'm surprising Alex by this as well, too, because he didn't even know I had her scheduled. But I got her scheduled last night for the Tuesday show, being as how, all that new, or not really new info, but at least exact info came out on Ben.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to talk to Dr. Mel, and certainly now that we actually know what Ben's injury is, because we speculated about so much, although I got to give Dr. Mel credit in advance. She's been all over what the injury likely was going to be for the longest time, and that was confirmed when Ben Roethlisberger spoke to the media on, was that Tuesday, kind of like as we were ending our show. So I wanted to kind of start there and recap everything that Ben said now that we've had a chance to really go back and listen to it. And we'll start with what we're going to talk about, Dr. Mel, on Tuesday, is the nature of Ben's injury. And this is the quote here he gave for it. And obviously Ben is not a doctor here, but he's the information. He says, quote, "There's no real name for it. It's not Tommy John. There are flexor tendons attached to your elbow. I tore 3 of them. Apparently there are 5 flexor tendons, and Ben tore 3 of them, and that's what needed surgery." So pretty rare injury, especially for quarterbacks and quarterbacks of his age, but not Tommy John. And that is not that I don't know how much information we can provide further than that, but that is the injury.
That is the injury, and he said specifically going back, I've had a little bit of an injury in that elbow for quite a few years, but it's just something that I've kind of dealt with. He said it was never serious enough to do anything with, specifically on that drive against Seattle last year. It just kind of, he says the pain wasn't really going away. I threw one deep one to Juju down the right side, and I just really felt a different pain and a different discomfort than I have ever felt. It was kind of a shooting down my arm pain. I knew something was different at that moment. So he detailed that. He said I think he was asked if he knows of any other quarterback or anybody else has had tore that many and had him repaired, specifically like a quarterback, and he says, no, he says he just thinks, average Joe Blow has probably had it done, but to his memory, he says he thinks there's been guys that maybe tore 2 of them or something, but he's got more.
Yeah, the one time you don't want more of something.
I picture Ben saying this ant goes to 11, which means absolutely nothing to you. You got to watch Spinal Tap, but it's one more louder,
Mm-hmm. I know that Bradshaw had that flexor tear, and again, I've been saying that this is more severe, so we know Bradshaw had it, and I also found out that Joe Montana had it too. Again, may not have been as severe as what Ben has with the 3 tendons being torn, but Montana had it, and he said something about The way they stapled it and the way they repaired it just didn't feel right. But obviously, technology, medical, all that stuff has advanced so much since the 80s and 90s. So that's all working in Ben's favor, obviously.
What did he say? They sew it back to the tendon. Did he say in there? I forget.
Did Ben?
Yeah, Ben said something about sewing something in there. I thought the other day.
It's a good question for Dr. Mel Tuesday.
He says they just go in and sew through the tendon and reattach it to the anchor in your elbow. Whew. All right.
That sounds pleasant.
Yeah, sounds pleasant for sure. But the good news is at least I guess judging from the pictures, and let's make it clear here, this team is not really going through any kind of practice, if you will. It's just a lot of kind of drills and walk through continuation and those kind of things. But there have been a couple people said that he's they've seen him let a few of them loose pretty good. Mike Tomlin talked yesterday a little bit about Ben and said he would like to see that spiral of his tighten up a little bit, but has been like velocity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ben's never really had that classic pretty spiral. I think he even admitted that last year. I think he had a training camp interview where he said he's never had that perfect spiral. So something to work towards for sure. But honestly, it's a little less alarming than Tomlin may be making that out to be.
Yeah, but at least we have. Here's the way I took what Mike Tomlin said about that. It's kind of a line in the sand. At least he gave us a marking point.
Right.
And for Tomlin, I don't think Tomlin just off the cuff said that spiral just ain't as tight, as we've seen it before. I think there was a reason he said it, and I believe that maybe that spiral is not as tight as what he's seen it before. But at least we do have at this point right now, and when did that interview take place? Yesterday.
With Tomlin yesterday.
Yeah. With him, we have a marker in the sand. So the media, if they're smart, in a couple of weeks from now, when Tomlin talks to them again, they'll ask how is the tightness of that spiral and all. Not that they're going to get maybe 100% truth there, but at least he gave us a marking point there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is good to continually to work through things because Ben is still obviously working his way back and still wanting just to show that and get trust in his own self and get trust in his arm. That's such an underrated factor of this injury. Is obviously there's the physical component to it and the surgery and the rehab and doing the right things and the right program and all that stuff. But the mental aspect too. This is the first really major on-field injury Ben's ever suffered, especially to his arm. He's 38 years old. There's a lot of trust you got to be able to make sure you have in that arm. So for him to be able to continue to ramp things up. He's been throwing, I think, almost every day. I know he said he's.
I think he has. I've kind of figured he would get maybe yesterday off, but the pictures, on the Steelers site show him throwing the football. So.
Well, he alluded to the normal, previous camp schedule of full day, half day, off day, but it seems like he's been throwing to some capacity every single day, so that's good. And the good news is just that he's throwing. He doesn't have any pain or extra discomfort the day after he's throwing. He's able to throw back-to-back days, and so all those things are very positive signs as he gets to ramp up and gets ready for week one.
Absolutely. Anything else that he said? He talked about. I guess we're going to stick with him, right?
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from him, and it was the plural. It was the plurals of Lombardis and the plural of years. And I like him talking about wanting to play years, and kind of he just felt like a guy that's not close to retirement. And he admitted, and we all obviously agree, he's not playing 10 years from now, but not somebody that necessarily will be done after 2021. It
doesn't sound like it, does it?
It does not.
And if that is indeed the case, and I wrote about this that same afternoon, look, everything's dependent on 2020, right? I mean,
sure.
They're not going to do anything with Ben right now. Everything's going to be dependent. Well, they already did something. They already restructured his contract, so not, there's obviously nothing that they're going to be able to do right now anyway. So in 2020, assuming he stays healthy, makes it through it, has a good season, hopefully, keep fingers crossed, deep playoff run, and maybe even a Super Bowl. he'll have a good idea. I'm sure come February time of or by late February what he wants to do, and if he thinks that whether or not he thinks 2021 will indeed be his last season. Though obviously with this team expected to have, I'm going to call them cap challenges. How is that? That is going to be my buzz phrase, because we don't know exactly what the cap number is going to be. Not that we do this time of year anyway, but it could be as low as 175, and who knows? If they get some attendance going, what it could ultimately be. So
you sound like those Ford commercials in these trying times. Ford is here for you.
There you go. My voice is the last thing you want to hear on a Ford commercial. It'd be into days. Into their market, they would have to be bottom of the barrel marketing wise for that to happen. But cap challenged next offseason. So with that, obviously one of the ways that they can probably clear the most money, albeit probably not as much as people think, would be to offer to get Ben Roethlisberger signed to another contract extension. Now, I kind of detailed it. I'm sure the math in that post set people's heads spinning, but realistically, if Ben was to sign an extension, in February or March, I think at most you're looking at about a $10 million cap savings in 2021. Because remember, you got the pass bonus proration on there of over $20-something million. Him at a minimum would have to have I think it's a 1.075 base salary per the CBA. So that alone puts it at $23-24 million. And you haven't even paid him any new bonus money yet. And if you think Ben's going to re-up for a contract and say, you know what, guys, that $15 roster bonus that you owe me, forget about it. That additional, the $4 million base I'm scheduled to have, take about almost $3 million away from me on that. Just keep it. No, I don't need any signing bonus for signing this time. If you believe any of those other things, you're fooling yourself. Okay, that $15 million roster bonus he's due, that $4 million in base salary that he's due in 2021 is considered old money. That's owed to him. So any kind of a contract extension that happens, that $19 million is going to be rolled up into the new money somehow. And even if he did the Steelers a solid and took just, had that $15 million along with, let's say, another $15 million another, let's say, $11 million and $3 million of his other base salary that he was due rolled up into a signing bonus, it's still going to produce a hefty 2021 cap charge there. So for everybody thinking that the Steelers will just solve their salary cap woes come March by signing Ben Roethlisberger to an extension, you're fooling yourself. At most, you're looking at about a $10 million cap savings, next March. But that's only, and once again, that goes back to why we're talking on this. They would need to sign him to a contract extension. But to hear him kind of talk, and I don't know how you kind of parsed it after not only listening to it, but reading the transcript, it sounds like he has intentions of playing past 2021.
Well, here's the quote that he said that really kind of caught my attention. He says, quote, "I'm not saying I've got 10 years left in me, but I definitely feel like I've got some really good years left in me." So that was definitely a motivating factor, was coming back and showing that I still have it in the tank. I still have a lot to give to this team. I still have a lot to give the fans. And yeah, I mean, it's a guy that, again, it's contingent on 2020 and how his arm feels and obviously how he plays and all that. And if things go sideways, and things can change very quickly, obviously. But it's just a guy that I think don't count him out playing past 2021, that he could play past that. And that's the bottom line. And whenever I said this, I got a lot of pushback for, what about cap and this and that? And I get those concerns, and you laid them out well, Dave, that obviously Ben's not taking a discount. It's not going to be cheap to do an extension with this guy. But you have Ben. That's the important eyes on the prize here. You have Ben. As long as you have Ben, you keep your Super Bowl window open, and that's all that matters. So if this dude's still feeling good, willing to play, able to play at a high level, that's everything else you can deal with. But you have Ben, you have a chance.
Absolutely. And, I think how long has that window been closing? Now make no mistake about it. 2021, no matter how you dice it with it's going to be a different team,
Very different.
Very, very different. And it's going to it might be one that's going to be a little bit more reliant on the offense than what we expected to be relying on the offense this year, right?
Yeah.
So
or relying on Ben in particular, because he's going to be one of your stars.
Right. For sure. So, what do you think the chances are of him? And it's way, way early, and don't hold us to any of these predictions, because once again, a lot of it's going to depend on how he plays in 2020 and how healthy that he remains.
The chances of him playing past 2021,
or signing the chances of him having an extension signed by the middle of March.
I mean, it's hard to put an exact timetable on it, but just broader of will he play past 2021? I think better than 50%. Maybe I'm being a little aggressive there, but I mean, it's just the way he's talking, and I think he'll recover from this injury, and I think he'll play well. So again, it's still getting contingent on 2020, but I kind of like the odds that he will sign an extension.
Where are you? Like 60% or?
Yeah, 55, maybe 60%.
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm more on the side of him doing it now that he's talked a little bit, I don't think I'd rank it higher than, let's say, 60% right now, because he says I have a couple of good, what was his exact wording? Couple of good years, and a couple is too. I mean, that's how much he's got left on his contract. So,
all right,
I mean, if we, this might be the 13-year-old fanboy in us coming out, but he definitely, I think he left the door ajar.
Right, and that's my big takeaway there. It's a guy that's hungry, a guy that does not feel like he's at the very end of his career, the twilight of his playing days, and so that's what has me excited to see him throw. And again, hopefully he'll continue to, play as good as he's talking about right now, because that's ultimately what matters.
All right, what else did Ben have to say that we need to discuss?
I think that was about it.
Talking about influence on the offense and
he talked about McDonald and Ebron, and obviously having those two weapons, especially in the red zone, can really help. He kind of compared it loosely to Heath Miller and Matt Spaeth a few years ago, though I don't know. McDonald and Ebron feel quite a bit different than Heath Miller and Matt Spaeth, but just the point of having some weapons at tight end, obviously is something that he's excited about.
Once again, I hope look, I'll gladly be able to eat the paper that this transcript's written on if they're able to. I get the whole. Obviously, look, I was the guy 5 years ago that says, man, I wish the Steelers get kind of a move tight end that could potentially block, and then have two of those guys where they can do a lot. Basically, what the Patriots were doing 6 or 7 years ago, be able to take a look across from you, see if the defense is going small and then collapse down and try to run against it, or if they're going big, stretch your split out spread out one of your tight ends, or even both of them, and make them pay that way. Just with the amount of mouths that they have to feed, and how this team really is still predominantly an 11 personnel type team. All this that they're, I guess what I'm getting at is, man, I'm going to be surprised to see more than, 200 and something snaps with two true tight ends on the field.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers of how much they've used 12 personnel. Obviously, probably a little less last year, maybe more in the Jesse James, days 2018, 2017. But it just depends on availability, because do you trust both these guys to play an entire season? I don't in particular right now. I'm sure most fans agree. But just to the general principle of creating matchup problems, different variety of guys, obviously having a move tight end like Eric Ebron, I'm sure is exciting for Ben. So I understood the overall point, but I agree with what you're saying. I hate to switch gears on you real quick, but I better do it before this thought escapes my mind. Did you see the latest? And trust me, this is what it's come down to, us trying to look at pictures now, because we don't have training camp and all like that. So excuse our fifth grade analysis here, but I mean, you have to go with what you give with, right?
What did you think about the most recent photos of McDonald? Or really all of them that you've seen kind of this last week with him on the practice field, him in the photo shoot, all like that. Have you paid them any mind, and has anything hit you?
I haven't really. You made a reference to it look like he looked a little bigger this year, right?
Yeah, he does. I mean, looks like one of the guys that I used to open up for that used to play with Molly Hatchet.
Reference.
Molly Hatchet is a rock band, a southern-based kind of poor man's Leonard Skinner, I guess you will. You ever heard the song "Flirting with Disaster"?
No.
Boy, you gotta go. You load up some Molly Hatchet on your computer today, boy. You want some good old Southern rock, Molly Hatchet. Anyway, yeah, he looks like he's beefed up a little bit.
Do you view that as a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, I don't know if it's by, maybe they want him a little bit more as a, less of a kind of move guy, more as more of an end of the line guy.
Right, and he did struggle as a blocker last year too. He was pretty terrible. And
he did look I don't know, trying to go back in my head, he looked a little, I don't know, wafy's not the right term for a 200 something, but thinking back, he looked probably a little bit more trimmer. Maybe this is all bias that's playing in my head right now, but it did cross my mind when I saw. And here's what I'm getting at. I think Vance McDonald, isn't Vance supposed to be talking to Steelers Nation Unite or one of these calls today?
Is that today?
Yeah. So one of you listening to this that listens to this show early and gets this digested before go make sure you get on and find out when McDonald's talking. Lord knows we'll have it. I'll track it down and make sure to tape it or whatnot. But one of you get on there and ask Vance McDonald if he's gained how much. Do some reporting for Steelers Depot, if you will. Get on this call or whatever it is, if it's indeed with fans, and ask, see if you can get a question to Vance answered whether or not he's gained weight during the offseason. I'd be curious.
It looks like. Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's for 3:15 today, so that's when Vance is talking.
Okay, and is that the Steelers Nation Unite?
Yeah, Steelers Nation Huddle, they're calling.
Okay, get on. Where can they find how to take part in that call?
I think it's just on Steelers.com. Just type in like SNU Vance McDonald, and you kind of find the information on the team website.
All right. Anyway, if you listen to this before that call takes place, I need a few of you on that call asking that question. It'd be interesting to know. But you see where I'm going with this, right? Did they potentially ask him to beef up a little bit, maybe to be more, because they have kind of a move guy in Ebron, because maybe they're wanting McDonald to concentrate a little bit more on the blocking side of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because McDonald, he's not a bad blocker in previous years, but last year was just terrible. And if you have Ebron, who's going to be obviously he's not going to become a blocker. He's not changing his stripes at this point in his career, so he's going to be your flex, your receiving tight end, more guy that's going to line up in the seam, run down the seam, I should say. So yeah, it could be McDonald. It's going to be more the inline blocking guy, and that should be his primary focus. So I'd love to know the answer to that.
I mean, that would play more into kind of what we're reading and hearing so far, right? I mean.
Just that it would play into the idea that they're excited about the two tight end sets, they're excited for different matchup problems, and defense is trying to figure out, as you said, if you're in 12 personnel with Vance and Ebron on the field, do you stick with your base defense, and now you got Ebron who could potentially line up against a linebacker, or do you go to your nickel defense, and now you're smaller, and now you could run the football more effectively if you're the Steelers offense? So yeah, I think it plays into it.
And I think Ben did a great job of actually describing that. Why you would want to go to something like that, because creating that's one buzzword that we've heard concerning the tight ends all this offseason, right? Oh, and we got some breaking news coming in now, too, on the Twitter machine. Let's see. The Steelers activate wide receiver James Washington from the reserve COVID-19 list. And to make room for him on the 80-man roster, they have waived rookie, undrafted free agent, inside linebacker John Houston Jr. So good news there. Got James Washington back working after a bit. How long was he on the list, Alex?
just 5 days, which is quicker than what I thought it was going to be. So good for him.
Good for him. So that means left on, we still have Justin Lane on the COVID list, and we have Jalen Samuels on the COVID list, right?
Right. Samuels was placed the same day as Washington on August 2nd, and Lane has now been on there for at least a week, I think, a little bit more, I believe.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with the roster. Not surprising that John Houston one of the ones that I predicted. I know one of the two linebackers, one of those two young linebackers I had predicted would be part of these cuts. I can't remember now which one I had predicted there, but not surprising that an inside linebacker, an undrafted one, is out the door.
Yeah, I was looking at the roster yesterday. Someone was asking about who all could be candidates to get cut whenever those guys get activated, and Houston was on my list, so no surprise there. And it's a little bit of dead money there, right, Dave? You had the news on that?
Yeah, I had Leo Lewis as the one out the door, not. So I had a 50-50 shot and I missed it. But yeah, with Houston, they had given him a $7,500 signing bonus, so he will have a $2,500 dead money charge in this season, 2020, and the other $5,000 will be dead money in 2021. And the reason it's split up that way, folks, is because these moves are happening after June the 1st. So anytime you have these moves happen after June the 1st, that you get whatever was scheduled to be the bonus proration as dead money in the current year, and then whatever was left else on the books rolls forward into the next year. So it was a 3-year contract with him overall. So as I said, $2,500 in dead money this year, $5,000 dead money in 2021. I don't think they're going to really notice that that terribly much, but obviously dead money is dead money, and it's worth covering there. So we got us a transaction to come across during a podcast instead of after one.
Right. Usually it's 4 seconds after the podcast.
Absolutely.
News comes in. All right. So let's get back to the tight ends. Just kind of wrapping up our thoughts there. Again, McDonald, we'll see if he gets a little bit heavier, if he wants to be in kind of more run blocking role this season. But regardless, the focus for both guys is stay healthy, be a weapon in the red zone, and just make this offense more complete, because they just totally lacked tight end production last season.
Do you know why the number 41 is a magic number for Eric Ebron in receptions this year?
I saw you tweeting about it last night. I'll let you. I won't spoil it.
No. Go ahead. I mean, but you do know now. Believe it or not, did you find this? Did you find this kind of, I don't know?
I was surprised.
Surprising, and I did too. The first, and here's the question. Let me set it up properly. Can you name the free agents signed during the Kevin Colbert tenure here who have caught 30 or more passes in their first season with the Steelers? All right, so first season free agent, that Kevin Colbert has signed since 2000, a long list of years there, that has caught 30 or more passes in his first season. The first one, I was on the bike, and this, I don't know what made me think of to research this out, but I was thinking, thinking about Eric Ebron, and I was thinking about, man, they haven't had great last year with Moncrief. That didn't turn out so well. Ladarius Green, that didn't turn out so. I said, I wonder who the leader is in that category there. And the first name that jumped in my head, and I'm sure several listening as well too, first name jumped in their head, Jericho Cotchery, right?
Right. He didn't. He's not one of them.
He's not one of them. He how many receptions did he have his first season in Pittsburgh? Was like 17 or something like that.
It was the next year, I guess, where he had his big 10 touchdown season.
Right. I like to call that the Tim Tebow season, I think.
Brings up some bad memories.
Yeah.
2011, he had 16.
Right. Okay. So I was one off there. So that was the first name that jumped in my head, thinking, "Oh, okay, yeah, surely Jericho Cotchery had over 30 in his first season." Nope. And then I started pulling the stats because I couldn't think of anybody off the top of my head. And then I'm going down the stats and Ryan Switzer's name on there. And then I thought, oh, okay, they traded for him, so he wasn't technically a free agent addition. But just in case anybody's curious, Ryan Switzer, how many catches did Ryan Switzer have in his first season with the Steelers? Obviously not many, but it was 36, right? Boy, it doesn't seem like he caught 36 his first season. A lot of those are those swing out varieties or whatnot and all. But even he doesn't qualify because the Steelers actually traded for him. There's only 2 players since 2000 who have caught more than 30 balls in their first season with the Steelers as signed free agents, and both of them are running backs. And they both have caught 40 passes each. D'Angelo Williams and Mewaldy Moore. Who would have thought?
You could have given me 20 guesses. I would have never come up with D. Will as one of those 2.
D. Will came into my mind, but I wasn't sure about it. And Mewaldy Moore, I definitely didn't think had that many there. So how about that for some trivia and really a sign that the Steelers really haven't done a good job when it comes to signing free agent pass catchers that have been productive in their first years. And so now circling all this back, what do you think about, that's why 41, I think, becomes a magic number with Eric Ebron. And I think we both agree that he should be right around that number. But I think a few people might be trying to sell his addition too high, right? What do you like? Do you like his chances of catching 41 or more passes in 2020?
Yeah, I think we're right around there. I think in that 35 to 40 range. So we're kind of really right on the dot. Again, dependent on his health, obviously, just to get that out of the way. But I think he's going to be pushing that number, but not much higher than 40.
Let me ask you this. If he only catches, let's say if he catches less than 41. Okay, let's say that he either ties the 40 or has less. Will he be back in 2021 with that cap number of his?
I would want to know how many touchdowns he got. That's the number I care about for Ebron this year.
Good point.
Is the red zone production, because that's what he did with the Colts 2 years ago. That's what he's getting signed for this year. So if he could catch 38 passes, but 6 of those are touchdowns, you bring him back, I think. Maybe. I mean, the cap is, your cap challenges, as you may say.
Where is that magic? What's the magic touchdown number that's in your head? Is it 6?
Know. I mean, that was like the 5, at least five or up is kind of.
Can I get 4? Do I hear 4?
I think if it's under 5, he's probably not going to come back. Even if, and I don't know if all of a sudden the 5th touchdown they're like, okay, we're going to bring it back. I mean, again, the cap situation is such a mess this year. But if he doesn't catch at least 5, I'll be disappointed this year.
So I guess kind of circling us back around to maybe some projections here, is the right projection for Ebron around 40 catches, 4 touchdowns? Does that feel right?
You could do. Yeah, I mean, 40 catches, 450 to 500 yards, and for me, at least like 5 touchdowns.
I bet if I threw all that line out, everybody would take the over on the Twitter machine. Most everybody, I bet a huge majority would be higher on him than those numbers.
Well, you did. Did you do a poll or you just asked about it on Twitter?
I think I just asked about it.
What was the feedback? Most people said take the over?
I don't know if I had time to double check that this morning.
Okay. I imagine that most people did, but just given the timeshare that's going to be there, the other weapons for this offense, again, do you trust Ebron to play every single game? That's going to make it more challenging to hit, 45, 50 receptions.
So who is he at as I start climbing back out of this this hole? Who is the most prolific wide receiver or tight end free agent addition for the Steelers since Kevin Colbert took over?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is they just haven't really paid money for those guys. The production hasn't been great, but they paid for Ladarius Green, but his issues weren't on-field related. I'm not even sure. I mean, somebody in the earlier 2000s maybe that I'm just not thinking of right now. I mean, it's like Lance Moore didn't do anything.
Would it be a Cedric Wilson?
Yeah, what did Cedric Wilson do his first year?
He had 26.
I mean,
that might be the leader in the clubhouse.
It's a low bar. He's a couple over par there, but I'd have to go back and research it a little bit, but that might be your winner.
Does that surprise you all these years, or not so much because the way the Steelers draft and develop receivers? You wouldn't think 30 would be that hard of a number to crack, right?
Well, it's just, again, they haven't really put a lot of money into that either. Free agency, they're obviously not someone that's ever really gone after a big name. As you said, they draft and develop. That's their approach to building receivers, is just draft the heck out of them. What is it? All but 2 or 3 draft classes, Kevin Colbert has not taken a receiver, or has taken a receiver. So they're just a different philosophy of drafting rather than signing.
All right, grab my hand and pull me back out of this.
All right, Dave. Let's I don't even know where to go from here, but I think that was everything on Ben with the tight end situation. Let's circle back to Mike Tomlin. He did talk about Ben. We mentioned at the top of the show. He also talked about significant steps, at least he's hopeful for, with Devin Bush and Mason Rudolph. And again, a little tough to evaluate those guys without a preseason, especially Rudolph, but still going to be evaluated nonetheless.
Yeah, it goes back to kind of things. It's too bad. We don't have the preseason, to see anything with him. And boy, it's, when you have a guy coming off of surgery like Ben is, you want to make sure you get proper reps with him and balanced reps with him in the limited 14 padded practices that you have, and on the same page with guys like Ebron. You're gonna have, long story short, you're gonna have to give Ben a nice share of reps. Probably somebody's going to get the shaft out of this bad. Not that it wasn't going to be bad anyway with 4 quarterbacks on the roster, but I really concentrate on getting Rudolph as much time as I can in these practices that Ben doesn't handle, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, because he's the number 2. You got to find out how well he's progressed and developed from obviously a rocky 2019. So he's got to be the guy, and so there's only so many snaps to go around for sure. Although I do think ultimately they just keep 4 quarterbacks on the team, put the 4th guy on the practice squad with that 16-man roster now.
That's obviously a possibility for sure. And I don't, what do you do with if you have? You just keep that guy at the house then, almost, really. I mean, do you really
want the Arians quarantine thing?
Yeah, because, I mean, if you got a 3rd quarterback to help in the practice squad, I'm not sure, but we'll end up seeing how that ends up playing out there. But regardless, look, here's the thing, going back to Rudolph again, and people saying this team should have signed a veteran quarterback and all this, that, and the other. We knew. You and I knew that they weren't going to do that. I mean, Kevin Colbert told us that they weren't going to do that, basically. Art Rooney, Mike Tomlin, they let us know right early in the offseason that Mason Rudolph was going to be their backup, okay? So the only way we're going to find out if that was a bad decision or not is if Rudolph plays any meaningful snaps and how he does. That is the only way. So plain and simple, that obviously that's not something that we're rooting for. We're not going to be able to visually see Rudolph take part in anything other than a couple of shots on Steelers.com these next couple weeks. So, that's where we are. Put your seatbelt on and hope for the best, because we're going to be blind to this unless Rudolph plays any meaningful snaps.
Right, yeah, just don't have the information this year. And with Devin Bush, Mike Tomlin used one of my favorite Tomlin phrases, hub of communication, Devin Bush, which kind of tells me he's expected to be the signal caller and wearing the green dot this year.
Yeah, some of the things that he said, and look, I mean, I don't think we have to be rocket surgeons to figure out that Devin Bush was headed towards wearing the green dot and being the defensive caller this season, right? But I think a few things that the way Mike Tomlin worded some things when he talked about Devin Bush specifically, it would be surprising if Devin Bush doesn't open the season with the green dot and as a defensive quarterback.
Right, yeah, because he's going to be the 3-down guy. He's in his 2nd year. He played well last year. That's the role that we knew he was destined to have, and if he was going to be a good player, then that comes with the territory. He's the only guy that can be an every down type linebacker with his skill set. So you got to wear the green dot in that situation, because last year I'm not even sure exactly what they did, but it was bouncing around. TJ Watt had the green dot at the start of the year. It kind of moved around throughout the year. You had Mark Barron, who's not a great communicator. not an ideal situation. You want it to be one guy that everyone looks to. And obviously he'll be working with Vince. He's a great communicator too, so they'll help each other along the way. And
they did talk to Vince the other day, kind of playing this into the conversation here. And Vince says, "Look, he learned. He's picking it up. He's learning. He's watching me. This, that, and the other. But I think if you go back and you totally parse out what Mike Tomlin had to say when he even asked about a guy like Vince Williams, I think there's still a little gray area as to how much we should expect Vince to play. Did you take that as a takeaway?
Based on what Tomlin said?
Yeah.
What did Tomlin say in particular? I don't know if I saw the quote maybe that you saw.
I'm going to have to try to pull it up
here. I'll vamp while you pull it up. Yeah, again, we had this discussion on the last show was that, it's totally possible that they don't want to play Vince the 700-plus snaps they did in 2017, 2018. The bigger question I have is just how do you replace that? Do you do that with UG3, which I find unlikely, especially to start the year as high as I am on him? Do you do that with Edmonds? And then what do you do to replace Edmonds? Now, that maybe he's just kind of switching Edmonds and Sutton role, and that's possible, but you just want to have a good replacement plan for playing more dime defense if that's the way you want to go about reducing Williams snaps.
How would you describe Vince Williams' role with this defense, and how does he lead on that unit? In terms of his role, in terms of when somebody says in a quote like that, are you supposed to quote that, or are you supposed to leave that out?
I think it's either or.
What's a proper journal? And like when a player or a coach says "like" in there, what's proper technique when you're writing that up? Is it to bypass that? I mean, obviously I don't put "ahs" in there or "uhs," So do you treat a "like" or a as a
Sometimes if it's at the start of a sentence, I'll cut it off. If it's in the middle of the sentence, I won't, because it might be more awkward with the flow of the conversation. But I went to a cheap public school, so I'm not the arbiter over here.
All right. Well, I did you one worse. I went to a private school. All right.
School of Hard Knocks.
Let's see. Always got to try to make sure I'm bettering myself on these podcasts, Alex. Anyway, he goes on to say, in terms of his role, in terms of the division of labor, that's another Tomlin favorite thing to say, division of labor. That's why we come to camp. That's why we go through the things that we go through. Just in terms of having worked with Vince over the course of his career, he's a formidable run stopper. I think you and I just said that same thing the other day, right? Mm-hmm. That is his niche. And also, do you say niche or niche or niche?
Niche, I guess. Usually.
I say niche as well too. He's always been really solid in that regard over the course of his career. Talk about his run-stopping ability. He's worked to develop other aspects of his game. His rush is something that has been noteworthy in recent years. Something else we talked about, recently about him getting after the quarterback. Tomlin goes on and says his ability to win as a blitzer versus back is an asset to us, and his football intelligence and communication skills have always been a solid component of his resume. So we got a lot of respect for Vince, and we're excited about his contributions this year, and some of the details in terms of what his role might be and how it plays out will be determined through this process.
Yeah, not a whole lot of an answer there from Tomlin, but certainly did not mention the coverage aspect of it. Talked about the run defense, talked about the blitzing. I did a study on Vince Williams earlier this week, and while he's obviously not an elite cover guy, he's not Ryan Shazier, he's not what Devin Bush hopefully will be. I do think he is much less of a liability than what a lot of fans paint him out to be because of what Tomlin talked about, the football IQ, the processing. As someone in zone coverage, I think he does a great job to be able to low wall tight ends, to be able to process routes, to be able to come off route combinations, and be able to pick crosses and stuff like that. So if you found Vince Williams, 5 worst plays in coverage, they probably wouldn't look as bad as some people think that they would.
All right, fair enough. It's going to be interesting to watch this whole, like I've said all along here. It's going to be interesting to watch this play out, especially in sub-package aspect. Look, heck of a, and Tomlin said, heck of a guy against the run. Especially some of these teams. Look, I think they're going to match up great with the Ravens again defensively this year. As long as they don't get in situations where they're having to play a lot of man and get their backs turned to a guy like Lamar Jackson. Just the standard stuff that the Ravens, at least last year, tried to run with the power running and all like that you would think they're not going to get stray too far from this season, right? those are the kind of things where it's valuable to have a guy like Vince on the field, especially when there's a fullback or a pulling guard involved there. My biggest concern is kind of getting into kind of that extended sub-package snaps against, lighter personnel, if you will.
Mm-hmm. But in those situations, if it is 3rd and 7, 3rd and 11, they're going to be in dime. So Vince is coming off the field anyway.
Okay, fair enough. Once again, it's going to be interesting to see if he can hit. What's that magic number with him? 500 snaps? I mean, what's the number where you say, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to take over or under, and all of this obviously goes back to blah blah blah. We assume health, this, that, and the other. But what would be a number to make you go, you know what, I don't know if I want to take the over or under on that as far as total snaps played or percentage of snaps played on the season?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of total snaps, I think I'd push the number higher. I would think about it in the 600 to 650 kind of range.
See, that's my concern, is getting that high, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know how they're going to play it.
But you're not as concerned about him in coverage as maybe I am, right?
Right, especially whenever you compare that with a Devin. Like, if you had 2 Vince Williams on the field, it might be more of a concern. But when you have a Vince Williams with a Devin Bush with a really high, level athlete, someone that can really cover. If there's a particularly tough matchup with a running back or a tight end, a McCaffrey, Kamara, athletic tight end type of guy, then you have Devin Bush to help solve those problems. If you had 2 Vince Williams, you may have a bigger problem. But because you have a really steady guy, consistent coverage guy in Vince with a high level guy in Devin Bush, I think you make it work really well.
All right, so you would like me not to live in my fears as much then?
Yeah. But Mike Tomlin, that wasn't maybe the best vote of confidence. It certainly was an answer that was a little messy in terms of projecting out Vince Williams' role.
All right. He talked about Juju on NFL Network, talking about expecting him obviously to get back to his old self again. That helped. He had a lot of praising for Juju and the conditioning and the shape that he showed up in, and his overall health, and will be a key component. But he expects Juju obviously to get back making the kind of plays that he was making way back in 2018. Not a huge surprise there. What else did Tomlin say in a couple of these interviews that struck you?
I think that was about it for me in terms of what Mike Tomlin had to say, to talk about how obviously he doesn't like the state and the lack of diversity in the NFL right now. He says where we are right now, it's comical, although it's not funny, and just trying to push for more diversity, and the NFL certainly had that effort recently. Talk about Minka Fitzpatrick and his attitude and work ethic and how he's like a first guy in, last guy out mentality, and that's part of what makes him great, which is I think really rare for a young guy, 23 years old still, to work like that, to have that approach to the game. Is pretty special, I think.
And I think both Tomlin and really Vince hit on this as well too, talking about Bush and just kind of the regimen that this kid's already in, coming in at the same time, and those little things I think that Vince pointed to. And look, Vince is not a wordy guy overall, right? And really has kind of, I think, learned to measure what he says when he's talking to the media. And sometimes I think he even catches himself on social media, probably going a little bit, too far there. But I think he gave, he pointed out the proper things when talking about Devin Bush.
Yeah, the good thing with Devin Bush when they drafted him, because you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. If you're Devin Bush, they trade up for your 10th overall. You're in the same conversation people asking about, they traded up for Troy, they traded up for Santonio, now they're trading up for you. The good thing, the Steelers surrounded this guy with a lot of veterans, whether that's Vince Williams, Mark Barron, Ryan Shazier, who at training camp last year, you always saw Ryan Shazier and Devin Bush walking with each other, talking with each other. I'm sure they have a pretty good friendship there. So being able to surround Bush with all those guys, veteran guys who can teach him a lot, I think really helps to show him how to approach the game professionally, not just on the field, but off the field. Everything Monday through Saturday to get you ready for Sunday. And I think you're kind of seeing that carry over into his approach this season.
All right. Anything else from Tomlin? I don't think we covered what Matt Canada had to say, right?
No, we haven't, and I'm really excited about what Canada's talking about, motions and maybe a little play action and all those little things this offense seemed to be missing last season.
Yeah, and Deontay Johnson kind of, if you paid close attention, and Lord knows I do, he kind of, let a line out there that confirms basically the things that we think, Matt Canada is going to help bring to this offense. Motions and stuff.
Motions and stuff. Yeah, there's as long as we see it. I mean, I'm not expecting them to totally transform this offense. Matt Canada is only the quarterback coach, and he's not the one calling the plays, obviously. But if he can add that influence a little bit, I'm all for it, because I think some of the most successful offenses, or I should say, the teams that use the most pre-snap motion are among the most successful offenses in football. And we know play action can be effective. We know this team has been bad at it and just not used it a whole lot for several years.
They haven't been bad at play action. They just don't use it.
Well, I think the number was they were bad too. At least I think Football Outsiders had the number that they weren't effective at it, if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, that was with the Rudolph and Hodges mostly last year, right?
Right. I think it was over.
I'm talking about Ben more than anything.
Right. Well, yeah, they were bad at everything offensively last year, but I'm trying to find the Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders. In 2018, their DVOA differential was negative 21%. 2019, it was negative 28.1%. So I don't know. I think they've always kind of struggled with it.
With play action?
Yeah, I'll send you the tweet here. These are his numbers. I'm just trusting his data here, but he's just kind of outlining how they don't do it a whole lot, and whenever they do it, they're underwhelming in terms of effectiveness.
I think if you go back, and I think sample size probably may have a play in that, but because look, that's one thing we've written and talked about several times over the last couple of years is why don't they use more play action?
Right. Yeah, I want them to use more play action. I want to be more effective at it too, but I don't know. I'd have to read these. Maybe I'm reading the table wrong here.
Okay, but anyway, Canada was asked, play action was really effective for Ben early in his career. Where does that fit in your playbook? But they sure are treating Canada like he's the offensive coordinator now, right? I mean, he probably shoot the camera over to a look at Randy Fichtner. He's probably over there, just side looking a little bit with his eyes, but look, we expect Canada to have some influence on this thing, but I don't think we're going to see, at least right out of the chute in 2024, the drastic stuff, right? We're still going to see a lot of the same old stuff that the Steelers do and what Ben likes to do, more importantly, but we might see some of this misdirection, some of these motions, maybe a little bit more play action, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know to what degree, but if it can be a little bit more, if it can be a couple different wrinkles. Again, I think just having a dedicated quarterback coach in general, putting aside the overall offensive philosophy, is important to help your investments with all your young quarterbacks in Mason, Duck, and Paxton Lynch. I think you just need that to take some of the pressure off and the responsibility off Fichtner, but also just have those dedicated resources to your investment, especially in Mason Rudolph and his development. So that in itself is important, and then hopefully he can kind of be able to influence the philosophy of the offense a little bit at least.
Let me read a couple of these quotes off here real quick here, Alex. Play action, he's asked about play action and Ben and utilization of pre-snap motion. And Canada says that is obviously a double-edged question, certainly for Ben. Where I am coming in and learning our system and what we have done here, that is my job to just enhance whatever I can. Obviously, play action is a big part of things we have done in the past. We are going to certainly focus on what Ben does well and what he has always done well, and however I can assist that, I will do that. So kind of a gray, nothing to really circle the wagons around right there. Later, he was asked, how long have you been the master of misdirection plays, and what do you find appealing about it? Canada says, I don't think I'm the master of much of anything. I'm coming in and joining what we are doing here. I've always enjoyed that part of the game. We were doing that probably starting all the way back in 2009 or so. Certainly at Wisconsin in 2012, we started having some fun with it. That's a key quote right there. Starting to have some fun with it. It has been part of what we have done in the past. But again, I'm coming in here and we are more focused on learning our system and getting going with what we are doing here. One of the things I keep going back to when I go back and watch like Maryland tape from a couple years ago and Pitt tape from, 2016. I fell down a rabbit hole the other day, was stuck on Pitt. My problem sometimes when I go back to these games, I forget my intention to go in there. I start watching the game there. I don't know if you do that as well too, but anyway, I think you're going to see more of the motion misdirection in the continued motion of players. Not just pre-snap motion and the player come to rest. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff, maybe some orbit stuff, some jet sweep stuff, and even some stuff like you saw, I think, McFarland at Maryland a couple years ago, where pre-snap he's leaving the backfield, at the snap of the football. Little things like that get defenses having to worry about, maybe getting one player out of place, right?
Exactly, yeah. Not giving them a chance to reset, because if you do bring someone in motion, then pause them and they are holding their position for a second or two. The defense can shift. They can communicate. If you can add an extra gap on the fly, if you can out leverage a guy, in man coverage, someone trying to come across, trying to catch up. If you're just trying to put stressors on a defense to react quickly on the fly with no chance to communicate, no chance to adjust, then that certainly can be problematic. And again, you look at some of the top offenses of football, Baltimore, the 49ers. I mean, they use motion as much as anybody, Kansas City as well. So I think if you add that component to it, it just creates another stressor for the defense.
Agreed. What else did Matt Canada say that caught your fancy?
I think that was mostly. I talked about Paxton Lynch and the talent and the pedigree, and excited to work with him. Just kind of boilerplate stuff. But as we've discussed, I think Lynch is going to look good in a setting like this, where it's just practice. It's not even a preseason game, where that may get him into some trouble. When he's got the arm strength and the overall talent and all the traits that got him drafted in the first round, I think he's going to look good in a practice setting this summer.
He talked about McFarland, how he's excited to work with him again, how he thinks he can kind of be we were really excited when that worked out for us, because I certainly have strong feelings for him as well. He is an explosive back, a dynamic back. He can take a 5 or 8 yard gain and make it into a very big play in a hurry. Damn sure can, which he has done and shown in his play in college and the time I was with him. I'm excited to have him around. He is excited. He is learning. He is working. He is doing everything that I hoped he would be doing. It is great to be back with him, and I think he is an explosive player that we can work through this transition of all things that have been a challenge. I think he will find his niche and have a role for us. I think we agree on that as well too. Maybe a ceiling of around 75 to 100 touches might be it, though, total touches as the season progresses.
Right, that's the range I'm kind of putting at to start the season. Maybe it expands with injury or his play if he plays well. But I agree with that statement that he'll have a niche, he'll find a role in the offense this year.
I think he will too. It might only be 3 or 4 snaps a game, but if one of those you can use him in motion to distract, one of them or two of them you get the ball in his hands, and then one of them you hand the ball off to him. That was always the big thing that I didn't like about Rainey and Archer, was those guys come into the game and you might as well put the red light on their helmets, right? They didn't use those guys enough at just carrying the football to make them more substantial players when the football wasn't in their hands. Does that make sense?
Right. They were always the tinsel, the window dressing. They were never just the running back. And that's the biggest difference between McFarland and those guys, is that McFarland can be just a bona fide traditional running back, exciting one, but not an Archer, Rainey, where they're just gadgety type guys. He can just be a tried and true running back, and that's what's going to give him the advantage, where that red light does not come on every single time he's in the game.
Right. Every time he's in the game, you don't have to give him the football or put the football in his hands. You just have to make defenses think that there's a possibility he could get the football in his hands from any alignment. And I suspect I hope that will be the goal of Randy and Matt Canada as this season progresses. Obviously, it'll be harder earlier in the season, I think, to do that. But as the season progresses, I think it can. Yeah,
I'm with you 100%.
And boy, let me tell you, you want to talk about, and this is why you got to watch the tape, man. You have kind of preconceived notions about these guys that you don't know a lot about pre-draft. Look, we looked at all the top name backs, right? the Hilairs, the Dobbins, the Taylors, all those guys. But we didn't know. Once you got into his tape, though, McFarland. And where they got him, it makes a little bit more sense, and he certainly can home run you.
Yep, that's what he's here to do.
All right, sir. Where to?
All right. Let's see. A couple receivers speaking to the media as well. Deontay Johnson, he spoke to the media. He's also heavier. He's heavier and healthier in 2020. Both very good things for him.
Boy, he looks good, doesn't he?
He does. He's up from 180 to 191, which is fantastic for him for durability, power. I mean, the AB was a guy that really added muscle, added weight, similar track throughout his NFL career. Again, not calling Deontay Johnson next AB, but following that track I think is very important for him.
I think he said it somewhere in there too. He settled back down around 186. So
is it okay?
Yeah, maybe technically, maybe only 5, but he looks a little bit more defined. I think more defined body type than he did last year.
Yeah. Again, durability's the thing with him. If you add a little bit of weight, you get a little bit stronger, being able to break tackles. I mean, he made a lot of people miss last year, but if you can break some tackles, that'll be important too to help with his ability after the catch, because he's going to definitely run some of the 3-step, 1-step route tree stuff. So yeah, and he's healthier too. He says 100% because again, he had a lot of injuries last year. He had the hamstring stuff and OTAs, bled over into training camp. He's got the hernia he was dealing with last year. So this dude's healthy. I mean, there are so many reasons to think he's going to have a big second year. Maybe not statistically, where it's going to be this massive, 1,400-yard season, but his health, his experience, the quarterback play, all those factors really make me excited for him in year 2.
Yeah, me too. And with Juju back, and if these guys can all stay healthy, and they get a nice little rotation going there, well, obviously Deontay being your primary X is going to see a lot of playing times. Hopefully they won't have to wear him out too much, maybe on punt returns. But I would think, we have no reason to believe he won't be that guy. I guess Switzer, but we'll have to see how that works out there. But yeah, definitely excited for him. And hopefully he can stay healthy and hit the ground running right out of shoot. Look, he talked about being able to finally being around kind of a different Roethlisberger this year. He's not getting not that Ben. Well, Ben does give rookies a cold shoulder. Let's be right up front and honest, right?
It wasn't even just the fact he was a rookie, but he wasn't working in the Ben line that much in camp last year. He was kind of with the second group because remember Dante Moncrief was working with the starters. So he wasn't part of that group and just really didn't get to communicate with Ben that much. I know he said Deontay did that Ben, his passes are better this year, but Deontay caught 7 passes from Ben last year. So I don't know how much he knows about that, but I'm happy he'll be working with Ben and being part of that inner circle this year.
No, he actually caught less than that, right? Because a couple of those passes in the Seattle game came from Mason, right?
Well, I'm counting preseason, training camp, and regular season. So
I got you.
Very, very few number of passes.
I got you. And he played a total of a little less than 30 total snaps he was on the field with Ben last year.
Right. So yeah, so he's just elevated the starter this year. So obviously getting to work in with him and getting that chemistry is really important this time of year because he really did not get a chance to develop it last season.
And he talked to obviously Deontay a couple weeks ago about attending some of those workout sessions that Ben put together, and that's obviously good to hear as well too. So nothing earth shattering really other than that from Deontay, right?
Right. And with Claypool, again, nothing earth-shattering as well, but kind of said what we've all talked about and we all kind of know is that hopefully early in the year he can make an impact in red zone and on special teams. That's kind of his mindset to begin the year. Yeah,
I really liked I thought how much of that did you watch?
Just like 10 minutes of it, but it was a pretty good interview.
It really was. I was impressed with how at ease Mark Sanchez might be the male Kristen Leahy. Do you know?
Was there a relationship between Sanchez and because it seemed like they were friends for a long time, or Sanchez is just that good at interviewing people?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know he had Chase really relaxed in this interview,
right?
And
you wouldn't think that with a SC and a Notre Dame guy.
You wouldn't think that at all. And someone who's really undervalued as an interview, I think, is that Kristen Leahy. I think she does an amazing job of just getting players to relax and ask some very good questions. I really thought Mark Sanchez did a great job with Claypool, and we obviously found enough to write about that. And he was asked immediately how does Claypool think that he can impact the Steelers offense? And he went right to it, man. He says, I think the biggest red flag for them last year was their red zone efficiency. And I think that's kind of the immediate impact that I can make is red zone efficiency and kind of adding a threat in that offense. And then beyond that, I honestly think that I'm kind of one of those guys who can make an impact on special teams and then throughout the entire offense. And I'm going to use special teams in the red zone to kind of prove myself, and then hopefully the coaches kind of realize what I can bring to the table. Seems like he's kind of been prepped for that as well, too. He's heard that other than from inside his own head.
Man does his homework. They were dead last in the red zone offense last year. So, I mean, obviously a lot of that's quarterback related, but hopefully he can make an impact there. And yeah, if he can have a specialty package stuff, some red zone stuff, obviously he'll probably be a starting gunner this season, at least a good chance of that. He kind of knows his path. He knows what to work towards. And I like a guy who kind of knows where he's at and where he needs to be. And just very mature. I like his mindset as a rookie.
I do too. I thought he answered those questions real well. And look, we expect him right out of the chute to be a gunner on the punt coverage team against the Giants week 1. And he talked about his love for special teams during that interview. If any of you get a chance, make sure you search that interview out. I think it's called, what was the name of the show? Fourth and Forever with Mark Sanchez. It's about 50-something minutes. He gets chased to try to sing Renegade in there. So it's
really?
Yeah, so it really is a very, very good interview with Chase Claypool, if any of you get a chance to watch that.
And just to tie things into the COVID update here briefly, and what Claypool talked about, again, very mature in his answer about talking about doing the right things, even though he's in a new city, young guy, obviously a lot of opportunity, but staying inside, staying isolated, being socially distanced and all that. And he says, just the question he asks himself is, how much do you care and how much do you want there to be a season? And the more players who adopt that mentality of being smart, of being socially distanced and following those health and safety protocols outlined by the NFL, the better odds there will be a season. So like his approach for that as well. All right.
Let's give somebody an incentive to ask McDonald that question today. if one of you can get on there and get McDonald to answer a question on that call Friday evening about whether or not he gained weight, $25 from me. All right. How's that, Alex?
I like it. I'd love to know the answer.
All right, I would love to. Would you really? I mean, or am I just? Is this Dave with his tinfoil hat on?
I'll put my tinfoil hat on for a second here. I'll do that with you. I'll conspire.
Okay, all right.
We'll see. I'd be interested to know. Just to hear his approach in general. So, if you could do that, $25 your way.
How would you phrase the question?
That's a good question. Do I get $25 for phrasing this question? Do I get a finder's fee?
No.
Basically, have you added weight this off season? I don't know. I guess it would just be point blank.
Is it because you expect to be used more as a block? Something along those lines. We got some smart listeners. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, smarter than us, and that's all that matters. And by the way, just bouncing off that with the COVID update, the NFL official deadline for player opt-outs was yesterday at 4 p.m. No Steelers opted out, one of only 3 teams, the Falcons and Chargers, the other 2 that did not have any players on their roster opt out.
I'm glad you hit on that, too, because I had formulated a question for you on that, off of that, and I would have forgotten unless you would have got to that. Why Vic Beasley has reported for COVID-19 testing for the Titans. You remember he was a no-show for the Titans several days there. All right, here's the question for you, and really I don't think there's a right answer here, but I'm interested in an opinion on this. Why do you believe the Steelers wound up being one of 3 teams not to have at least one player opt out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about it a little bit myself as well. And again, I totally respect anyone who wanted to opt out, especially the high-risk guys, but also just the voluntary guys. Totally their decision. What's best for them and their family is what's most important. The best thing I could say is a little bit of luck. Just players just deciding that no one was super high risk or just felt like they wanted to play this year. But also maybe to the point about Pittsburgh is the mentality the Steelers have taken. Mike Tomlin, really stressing the importance of how to stay healthy, how to be smart, how to be responsible. He outlined that, I think, last week with this, all for one for all mentality. If you don't want to be the guy that is the cause of an outbreak in the locker room. So I would imagine that a lot of players felt more comfortable in Pittsburgh because of whatever approach the team took to explain the situation, to have safety protocol, to follow those safety protocols, because we know that not all teams are. You look at college football, you look at some of the NFL stuff, that's not happening. So I would imagine just the players feeling comfortable and safe, obviously, would be the reason why they wanted to play.
That is a very good answer, and that's where my head is as well, and it kind of goes off of what Mike Tomlin said early in that NFL Network Good Morning Football interview yesterday. Let's see, he says, I hadn't heard the potential of anyone with strong considerations in that regard, talking about opting out. But if that does transpire, then obviously we'll respect that decision and make whatever necessary professional adjustments that you have to make. But more than anything, largely, we've been working to educate our guys about the pandemic and what it is they need to do in terms of a role in an effort to keep themselves and those they encounter safe. I don't know how much different that is from maybe what other teams obviously are doing, but do you maybe get the sense that the Steelers might be doing a better job of educating here? I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, it's possible. I think they're taking it seriously. They're taking it professionally. They're taking it seriously. Like, I'm sure obviously every team is taking it seriously to some degree. I would think, but like, and maybe this is me being a little, I don't know, clutching my pearls, but John Gruden, I think, faked that he had COVID, and just to that was his message of getting players' attention about COVID. Is that I think there was an assistant coach that Coach Gruden has COVID, and then they realized, this is just a coaching motivation thing. And I get that, I guess, but I think that's kind of dumb. That's kind of BS to do that to your players. Let's be honest about it. Let's be serious about it. Let's be professional about it. But we don't have to do that kind of stuff to get the point across. And I think players probably respect that Tomlin's approach is serious, professional, but we're not going to lie to the players to get your point across.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard that, and I'm on Twitter all day. So he kind of set that back.
Let me look it up and make sure I'm getting that story right. But I saw something about that.
That's insane. Knock on wood if you're with me while I have COVID.
All right, this is from the local newspaper. If I can get past all the ad blocks. All right, hold on. Ad block stuff. Let me refresh the page. But yeah, it looks like he tricked the players. The Raiders players logged on a Zoom call last week expecting to see John Gruden. And let me find where my place was here in the article because it wants to keep shifting on me. Expecting to see John Gruden, said they saw the special teams coach and assistant head coach. That coach told them, guys, Coach Gruden has COVID and he's at the hospital now being taken care of. When the players were taken aback, they shortly thereafter told them, you know what, we're just putting you on a little bit, and it wasn't a joke. What it was to the team was illustrating to the players that this could happen at any moment to anybody. So they pretended that Gruden was really sick with COVID, then use that as their teach point, which is not the approach I would take.
Yeah, that's a bit out there, I think.
Especially to say he was in the hospital. Who would do that?
That's unique. Anyway, that's just a question that popped in my head yesterday. 69 is the total amount of players that evidently have opted out league-wide.
Wow. Including some big names.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I got to say it.
What's that?
You said 69. You have to say nice when you say 69.
Oh, okay. All right.
10 years old here. Anyway, I'm gonna move myself along here. With Claypool, Deontay Johnson. Anything else? Vince Williams speaking with the media as well. Talked up Devin Bush and said UG3 is doing some nice things this offseason as well. Anything else from any player or coach that you wanted to touch on?
Man, I think we hit on a lot there. Not anything off the top of my head unless you can think of anything.
You want to talk about the running back and Adam Sheen, and I don't even want to give this guy much credit because I just think it's dumb I think he's just trying to provoke responses at this point. But James Conner is the worst starting running back in football, and I think he could not be more wrong about that.
I mean, is James Conner top 10? Probably not, but worst? Really? I mean, where would you? I think didn't PFF ranked the groups around the NFL and put the Steelers somewhere like, I don't know, what was it, 20th or 21st?
23rd, I think it
23rd.
was.
23rd. And okay, let's I think that, that might be low end. Maybe maybe even 25th in the league based on everything maybe that transpired. Look, if you want to ding James Conner on durability, you're not going to get any qualms from me, right? I mean, But when he is on the field, what kind of back is he? I mean, he's a productive back when he's on the field. It's a guy that forces missed tackles, breaks tackles, can catch the football out of the backfield. I guess the only thing is well, how can you rank him high if he's not on the field? I get that part, but to call him the worst starting running back in the league, I don't know. That just sounds a little rich to me.
Very rich. I had a question in my mailbag yesterday that kind of had a similar approach to the question and those comments. And I won't go through every single running back because there's a bunch of them and we don't have a whole lot of time. But running backs that I would put ahead of James Conner. Let me ask you, Dave. I'll give you a handful of running back names here. Would you put these guys ahead of James Conner in terms of starting running backs? Jordan Howard in Miami. Is he better than James Conner? I don't think so either. Sony Michel in New England.
I don't know. Sony's right. Sony can do a lot of things, but not the pass protector, though, is he?
Right. I don't think so. Not the Connor. So, this is running back in totality. Run, pass.
Probably not.
David Johnson in Houston. I don't think so. He looked just terrible last year.
Okay.
Would you put Connor above?
One of the knocks on him is his durability too, right?
Mm-hmm.
David Johnson. So I'd put him right there probably with him. I got to admit, I haven't watched there hadn't been a lot of David Johnson film to watch lately. You know?
Right. This is a close one for me. I said James Conner is better than Leonard Fournette, but what do you think?
Oh, wow. That's another one that's right there, I think, because he's such a good power runner, you know. Mm-hmm. But what does Fournette bring to the passing game what James Conner does? And I'd say no.
Right. Is he as complete as James Conner? I don't think Fournette is.
Okay.
Miles Sanders in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I probably haven't watched enough on him, but my inclination would be to say no.
Right. Adrian Peterson with the Washington football team.
No, he's a shell of his former self now.
Right. Yeah, David Montgomery, Chicago.
No.
Ronald Jones in Tampa Bay.
No.
Whatever the Rams are doing with like Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson, I think Connor's better.
That Henderson's a pretty damn good guy, but I all around probably not.
All right, Todd Gurley. Talk about injury concerns. I don't know if Gurley would be ahead of Conner at this point. So the point is, easily you're going to come up with several names that James Conner is better than those guys.
All right, let's go to step forward there. And he also said the worst running back room in the NFL.
I mean, I don't disagree with that assessment. I mean, we just went through some names here, and I think Connor's a better starter than several of those names. And again, you got some interesting depth like Snell in year 2. You had McFarland. Even though I'm not a big Jalen Samuels fan, if he's like your number 4, you could do worse for a number 4 type running back. So
and heck, Smallwood. You add some.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to add into that potential group as well. Look, if you want to base it on just the stats on what this running game did last year, I mean, it's going to stack up ugly, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I mean, if we're looking at talent and totality and what these players have done on the field, I don't, is it top 10? No. Is it middle of the pack? Maybe at best, right? But bottom, no.
Yeah, no, I think.
And we wouldn't be afraid to say if it was, right? I mean,
right? Yeah, we're not calling this the best running back room in football. It's not, but far from the worst.
All right.
Last thing I want to mention here is I did a video yesterday on Tyson Alualu and his run defense. And Dave, really just going back to his tape closer because I haven't revisited his tape in a while. It's really just impressive to see his how much of a technician he is against the run. His ability to understand leverage, hand use, being able to defeat blocks, be able to find the ball carrier to finish the play, and the combination of the strength that he has. Really impressive. So I did a video on that and just all the little things he does to be able to split double teams or reduce surface area or defeat blocks, use his hands well and effectively. Really impressed how well he plays the run.
All right, so what is the drop-off against the run from Hargrave to Tyson Alualu?
You would lose a little bit in terms of the ability to one gap and penetrate and make some of those big plays, and the quickness off the ball that Hargrave showed is something Alualu doesn't have. But besides that, I don't think the drop-off is significant because
against the run.
Against the run, yeah, specifically against the run. The pass rush is a totally different story. And we'll see how Alualu has to deal with more constant double teams, something he didn't see as often, but saw a little bit playing more of the 4-eye or 3-tech last year. But it's not something that's going to keep me up at night, I'll put it that way.
All right, good job. Very enjoyable breakdown that was.
All right, Dave, anything else you want to cover before we can get to some reader emails and begin closing out the show?
Well, I think we've think we've done a lot here today, haven't we?
A lot to talk about. Feels good. Something to talk about today.
All right. How about an email from Mark? I think Mark. Yeah, Mark. Thank you for somehow getting us to training camp and doing it with a smile. My question, I think he's got a couple of them here. What would you do? What do you think it would take for the NFL to utilize Saturdays for TV in an attempt to recoup some revenue? I think it's possible, but if it's not on the calendar by the season, in other words, I don't think it's going to happen unless they have to move or cancel a game to another date or something.
Right, and I imagine there's going to be some semblance of college football this year, at least D1 or FBS. So I don't think the NFL wouldn't explore that heavily unless college football pulled the plug entirely.
Correct. Number two, if Ben really wants a chance to win multiple Super Bowls, as he mentioned in the media, he's going to have to work with the team in 2021 to help them get some talent around him. You previously mentioned a faux 4-year extension. This could actually be done in a way that would allow him to continue playing if the yearly contracts were reasonable, right? Well, here's the whole thing, though, Mark, that this goes back to. And I'm talking about if we just did this quote-unquote faux 4-year extension with basically all you're doing is adding on 4 years of fair base salaries and then taking what Ben is due in 2021, which is the $15 million roster bonus, along with almost $3 full million of his base salary. So almost $18 million, and turning that into a signing bonus, and then prorating that out the 5 years. And if that's all you didn't give him any new bonus money, you're still only going to lower his cap number in 2021 by, what did I write, like 14 million?
I think 14 was like the max.
All right, so that's the best case scenario that you can do with Ben. But once again, if Ben were to do an extension like that, he's setting himself up really well. He becomes a year-to-year player that's super easy for the Steelers to cut. All right, there's no roster, there's no guarantee for him beyond the 2021 season there. So, yeah, if you want to talk about the best case scenario for Ben to work with the team, that would be it. Other than that, like I said earlier in the show, Mark, I think the best case scenario is some sort of an extension, a more realistic scenario where maybe he saves you $10 million there. So a lot of the issues here with Ben's cap number in 2021 is the fact that they've done so many restructures with him. You have 20-something, only $19 million of what Ben of that 40-something million cap number that Ben is scheduled to have in 2021 is salary and roster bonus money.
Really? So less than half.
Yeah, the rest of it's bonus proration. That's not his fault. So you're already going into 2021 with Ben doing you a solid by playing for $19 million in earnings, right? Technically?
Yeah, for sure.
But people are going to look at that. Now, obviously, previous signing bonus was part of the deal and obviously makes his average yearly earnings more. But technically, he's only going to earn he's only on the books for $19 million in earnings in 2021. I mean, that's how much he's scheduled to earn. And a lot of people don't see that. They see that $40 million cap number and say, oh, man, Ben's got to do this team a favor. Right?
Right. Well, that's only a byproduct of him doing the team a favor in the past by restructuring contracts to kick the old can down the road.
And really, I mean, he's not really doing the team all that big of a favor. I mean, he's not like he's taking less money,
Right. But you get the point. Like, he was just working with the team so they could free up space when they wanted to do restructures previously. and now they're just paying the price for it down the road.
Let me read the rest of this out. He says, example, $35 million a year maybe. The only caveat is he gets no signing bonus for extending his contract into the future. This is really not necessarily a loss for Ben, just not maximizing his earning potential. Do I have this right? If so, I think he could save $14 million in 2021. Right. That's exactly what I wrote in the post a couple of times. So good on you, Mark, for paying attention there. Yeah, the best case scenario when it comes to cap savings with Ben Roethlisberger in 2021 is right around $14 million. And that's only if all that happens is 4 other years are added to his contract with very nice base salaries. And then he takes that almost $19 million, $18 million of the $19 million he's scheduled to earn and just has it simply turned into a signing bonus. That plain and simple.
Right. And again, finding a way to it's better to find a way to win with Ben given that cap number than it is trying to find a way to win without Ben on this team. So just keep that perspective. He's playing well and he's healthy. I'll welcome that cap challenge because I'll have number 7 on my team.
Right. No, absolutely. If he looks, I mean, if the arm doesn't look right and he plays horrible in 2020, then you have to examine the other.
Right. But failing that, give me number 7.
All right, let's see here. What else do we have? Deshaun Campbell writes in, "Sup, guys? My question today, I'm hoping someone big is listening to your podcast and can make this happen. What were your thoughts on maybe all teams broadcasting maybe 2 training camp practices on their local stations, also starting their own bubbles in their cities just by renting out major hotels and monitoring them?"
Yeah, I would love for them to film practice. That's not going to happen in Pittsburgh, I don't think, but that'd be a nice thought for sure. I mean, again, I guess teams can still open practices for fans, but I don't think any team has done that, and I wouldn't blame them for it. And for the bubble thing, I know the Saints are kind of doing that, but I think Joe Judge had a good commentary on yesterday, the Giants head coach, talking about how it really isn't a bubble because players are still traveling in and out, and either you have a bubble or you don't. You really can't have half a bubble. It doesn't really work.
Deshaun, I wish we had that kind of pull, brother. As well known, well listened to this podcast is, I am having a hard time envisioning Mike Tomlin or Kevin Colbert or Art Rooney II tuned in right now.
I'll just be grateful if we get some one-on-one footage, which I'm not even sure we're going to do at this point.
I will take anything at this point they are willing to give us, I think.
We're like, please, sir, may I have another?
Yes, we are Oliver now. All
right,
of a sudden.
there you go.
Have you seen that movie?
No.
Okay.
Just get the reference.
Okay. What have you seen? What exactly?
Not much. Just a bunch of memes on Twitter.
Yeah. You're a child of the internet age, aren't you?
I am.
Let's see. Brett's got one about Brett. Let me table this one. He's got a lot of questions about opt-outs and all like that, and what it means to some of these other teams not named the Steelers. Let me get to that one on the Tuesday show. Gene Jordani writes in, "Hey there, Dave and Alex. I hope you and your families are doing well and staying safe. Maybe this question has been asked before, so forgive me if you're already answered this. I'm not native speaker of English. Don't feel bad, Gene. Neither am I. So I always find it funny when Dave says email machine and Twitter machine or that kind of stuff, since I don't recall hearing that anywhere else. So is that a thing that people say in English, or is it something that Dave invented? I know it's not football related, but it's something I always wonder about. Thanks for the great podcast and keep up the good work." How would you answer that question, Alex?
That is a Daveism for sure. That is up there with the Tomlinisms, and we had a new Tomlinism. The you can't put the Jello back in the box. Right up there.
I can't. In fact, how do you in powder form?
Who's trying?
In powder form, it's not that hard, right? I guess it's hard to put the Jello back in the box once you made the Jello, right? Especially if it's Jello and not pudding. I mean, you could put pudding back in the box, but yeah. Yeah, it's just something that I've always kind of had kind of fun with, with me being old and email and Twitter being kind of newer technology, kind of having fun with the two and making it sound more than what it is. Does that make sense, Alex, or no?
Yeah, I think it's just putting your spin on the different generation and just having some fun with it. Like
I just you know me, I try to have a little bit of fun with kind of everything. I try not to be too serious in anything that I do. I try to be dedicated, but not too overly serious. I try to have fun with it all, and hopefully that kind of shows through with this thing. How about one last one, Alex? Jordan writes in, "What's up, guys? After watching tape on all our rookies, no, we already hit on this, didn't we? I was most surprised with Anthony McFarland. No, we already hit on this, and I think, let me see if I can find anything else here that I might have missed here. No, I think that's got all the pertinent emails out of the way, Alex. So with that. Like to add anything else before we get out of there? People, get on that call with Vance McDonald. $25 for if somebody can get a question into Vance McDonald about his weight, if he's gained any weight, and if that's for blocking purposes. I'd be interested to get that answer there. Let's see how powerful this podcast can really be. Don't forget, if you got a question for Dr. Mel on the Tuesday podcast, or any email question in general, send it to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Any final thoughts, Alex? Any last minute praise from me or anything you'd like to?
Oh my goodness.
No, what'd you think about that wide receiver question? The 40 number. That was quite intuitive or quite inventive of me, right?
Yeah, I like that. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning here last night. I'm in bed and I'm scrolling through and I saw the answer by the time I even had a chance to think about what the answer might be. So I did not know the answer to that. So I learned something. And so thank you for always imparting some knowledge on Steelers Nation every day.
You are quite welcome. And with that, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Tell them about our Facebook page.
Yeah, be sure to like us over on Facebook. I don't know if everyone realizes. Obviously, we have Twitter, and I'm sure a lot of people realize that, but like us on Facebook as well. Dave, I know you've been posting some great photos from the Steelers photo shoot the last couple of days, which has gotten a good response. So be sure to like us on Facebook. Yeah, ask questions for Dr. Mel, and be sure to tune in for the Monday live stream over on my YouTube channel from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Dave and I answering your Steelers questions every Monday for an hour.
Yeah, and if it makes anybody feel better, Alex primarily runs the Facebook page. So if you feel more comfortable over there, get on it, open up your Facebook machines and get on them and like the page and share some of the stuff that we have posted, if that's your means of social media that you'd like to get on. So once again, you can email us terriblepodcast@gmail.com if you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, so we can buy bigger and better Twitter and email machines. You can do so by going to SteelersDepot.com and hit the donate button, upright navigational bar. Also, if you want an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button, upright navigational bar. For $25, you can have an ad-free version of the site. Boy, we did a lot today, Alex. So with that, I guess it's time to get out of here. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.